ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who have not met me, my name is Johan Berger, and it's my privilege as the Director of the Centre for African Studies to welcome you here to this session of the African Angle Breakfast Series. Those of you who have been with us before would know this is the session where we share experiences about what goes on in Africa, both as Africans and as Singaporeans in Africa. We've had a couple of very nice and very informative sessions, and this morning promises to be one as well. I would like to raise 3 points given the salience of the topic that we're looking at this morning. First of all, it's about Africa. Africa from a tourism perspective, ladies and gentlemen, is a wonderful place. Both, when you look at whatever region you look at, whether it be East Africa, whether it be West Africa, North Africa, Southern Africa, from a tourism perspective, from a business opportunity perspective, it is a great place to be. Yes, there are areas that you're less comfortable in, but show me the part of the world where that is not the case. So Africa is first of all the focus of attention, and from a tourism perspective, you could hardly do wrong. And then we have sound as well. Thank you, Stella. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, it's about tourism. Tourism is a wonderful sector to be in. Other than the fact that I've just mentioned, Africa has great tourism perspective. From a business opportunity perspective, from economic growth perspective, it has a wonderful leverage effect. Whichever side of the value chain you look at, going upwards or going downwards, it creates a lot of jobs. It sort of, as I said, leverages the impact of every dollar spent in the value chain. So from a tourism perspective, Africa looks at the opportunities and says, please, come on in. We have no qualms, people coming in from the outside. As a matter of fact, Africa actively encourages it. And thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, as far as this morning is concerned, we're sitting with two entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship and SMEs are those kind of business entities that's where the jobs are created. And literally speaking, it is my opportunity now, my privilege to introduce the two small, and even now I could go take one step back, micro entrepreneurs who've taken it upon themselves to grow their business, to tap into the opportunities in Africa. From Singapore, we have Cherisa Kwong, who is the owner of Tribe Explorers. And from Uganda, we have Mark Akiriza, who is with Watali, which is from Uganda. And the two of them will be talking to us, both of them at the same time, in front, not talking at the same time, to explain to us how they've gone about creating their tourism business in Africa, the challenges that they've had, the opportunities that they've seen, and the experience in general. From my side, thank you so much for your willingness to come and share. It's the first time we have micro and small enterprises here, ladies and gentlemen. So I look forward with great expectation to this morning. Welcome, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johan. Your Excellencies, Protocol observed, good morning to you all. Thank you very much for coming. We hope you will have an insightful morning, and we hope to learn also a lot from you. So our conversation this morning will be looking at this topic, creating a tourism startup in East Africa from my experiences, and we'll try to cover quick facts about East Africa as a region. We will also look at the opportunities and the potential, and then after that we will try to look at the market in Africa, market in Southeast Asia, and then our experiences, and then close it up with our takeaways, what we have chosen to call words of wisdom. And then from there on, the whole conversation will be an open one, and then let's take it from there. So, without wasting time.
Just a little brief background.
Okay.
Mark, just to introduce him, is from Uganda. I'm not sure how many people have been to Uganda. You have? You have? Wonderful. And personally, I'm from Singapore, so today we actually complement each other, with perspectives from a Singapore entrepreneur as well as an African entrepreneur who set up his company in Africa and setting up my company in Singapore. So giving you, both sides of our experiences. So take it away, Mark.
Thank you very much. I think it's important at this time to help differentiate East Africa from East African community. East Africa is definitely the region where we find all these East African countries, as simple as it sounds. Then whereas the East African community, as you can see, that's the green you're looking at. Thank you. It's an intergovernmental organization with a potential precursor to have all these member states become a sovereign community, I say. And it started with 5 countries, and that was Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi. And as I speak now, we have the youngest nation on the earth, South Sudan, join in. And as we can look at the quick stats, we're looking at over 150 million people, collective GDP of over 160 billion. It covers about 2 million square kilometers, and that's, for perspective's sake, 3,000 times bigger than Singapore. And the predominant economic activity is agriculture, supporting over 70% of the population. East Africa is definitely been identified as a place for tourism, and there's growth in interest. And as you can see here, these are the stats that we could land on between 2006 and 2014 in the East African community. And as you can tell, there's been definitely increment in the arrivals. But we also want to say that most people know East Africa for the wildlife. We are here to also highlight that there are other opportunities as well, other attractions that you can find in East Africa. Cherisa, if you could share about that.
Yeah, indeed. I think East Africa with Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda has a reputation as a safari country. However, it has a diverse variety of landscapes, climates as well. You could be suntanning or baking in the sun in Kampala, but you could also be freezing at the top of Rwenzori Mountains, where you've got snow-capped landscapes. For the more adventurous, you could go, hiking or scaling a mountain in Kilimanjaro, Mount Kenya, or you could kayak, explore the lakes of Lake Bunyonyi, Lake Victoria. For the less adventurous, you've got activities, that range from historical to cultural, art as well. So, notice there's no elephant, no animal in these photos. So what we want to tell you is that besides wildlife safari, there's a whole host of other activities, that travelers to East Africa could consider. So one of the other major opportunity for tourism in the region is connectivity. With looser visa restrictions, for example, there's the East African visa covering Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya, where travelers can easily move between these 3 countries, would help to break borders and help people move much more easier. Beginning of this year as well, Rwanda introduced a visa on arrival for all nationalities. So visitors don't need to apply, for a visa in advance. They can just turn up at the airport or at the borders and obtain one on arrival. So this makes it again a more attractive destination for travelers from different countries to consider. Flights as well is one main, the factor for bringing people across countries. Ethiopian Airlines has launched a direct flight from Singapore to Addis last year. So that's shortened, travel time. It's reduced the cost of traveling within the continent dramatically as well. And also with connectivity, so flying to Addis from Singapore, you can then connect to other African countries very, very easily. And lastly, of course, accommodation. Travelers would want to look for something like an international brand hotel for a new traveler to Africa, for example. That gives them, the sense of familiarity and trust. So if they've stayed in a Hilton or a Marriott before in their previous travels, now having international brands in, the African countries give them that sense of familiarity, and also opens up a whole other options of accommodation options for travelers. So yeah.
I think it's important to look at the government efforts in nurturing the potential in East Africa. If you recall, back in the East African history, we've not had a good past, and most people still identify us by that. You know, the genocide in Rwanda, you know, the war up in the northern part of Uganda, and guess what? Today it's no more. And now you're looking at governments coming together, mobilizing all resources as they can get to, you know, engage in investors and also invest in infrastructure. What you're seeing here is the Kigali Convention Center that opened in 2016. And this is an example of what governments are doing to kind of encourage as much as possible the potential that they have in tourism. In fact, if I were to quote a bit of statistics, Kigali, Rwanda per se in total, with the statistics that have come out, they're actually making very good progress. They invested about $40 million US, and they have been able to make over half a billion dollars due to the investment. And this is because of the different investments they have made, in particular in conference tourism. So that shows that there is incredible potential, and the governments are happy to do as much as possible. The tourist receipts right now have actually exceeded the traditional, agricultural products that we usually extend out. So this, I think, developments signal the potential that there is. They let us know that Africa is on the go, and it's up to us to tap into the potential and put it to use. I mean, even if I was to pick on other countries in East Africa region, Uganda is relaunching its national carrier in November. It's going to be good, the Uganda Airlines. If you cross over to Kenya, they are expanding the international airport. If you go to Rwanda, they're also building another international airport. All this is to help with the connectivity, at the same time justify the passion with which our governments are getting together to nurture the potential. I think it's important to look at the market in Africa, and quickly, an example that we have is Kenya. By the statistics that were released by the Ministry of Tourism, in fact, the second, largest contributor to the tourists that were coming into Kenya were actually Ugandans who are crossing over into Kenya last year, about 29%, next to from the UK, which is about 36%, and that justifies how there is incredible market within our reach. Over 1 billion people in Africa. I think it's time that we started to explore that as an opportunity as well. And I think it's important also to mention the intra and inter tourism that is being also spearheaded by the African Union. I don't know if you've heard of the African Union's Transformation Agenda 2063, which is to make sure that there's a visa on arrival. She mentioned about Rwanda going ahead and giving visa on arrival. Actually, Kenya is doing the same as well. They passed it last year in November, the president, and you're getting them focusing their attention on how to attract the African travelers into these destinations. In January this year, 22 African countries adopted the AU Single African Air Transport Market to open up their skies. And the experts actually believe with this, it should be able to drop tremendously the cost of flying around, about 25%. So that already is a market that everybody in Africa is trying to tap on and explore as well. Rwanda Air, Kenya Airways, if I was to mention examples, they're already flying to over 24 destinations within Africa. So I think there is definitely the momentum going to ensure that we will not always wait for the outside market. Within ourselves, there is already market that we can tap into. Technology and tourism in Africa. We're not, as you can see, this is what we could find on the making news already. You know, Airbnb coming into Africa with Cape Town leading with the local the listings that you're going to find online. Next is Morocco. Then Kenya is number 3 in Africa with Airbnb. Nigeria is number 5. But Nigeria is fast growing with Airbnb. Then of course Facebook users, it's very important to understand that there are more, with the younger population that we have, there are more people that have access to internet, so we need to think of how to tap into it. And there's an example of Jovago, which is a TripAdvisor, but now in a local-made East Africa option, and people are going there to choose accommodation. So I think it's important also for a startup to start thinking of how to embrace technology, regardless of the challenges that are going to be faced because of infrastructural limitations. So I think Africa is definitely on the rise. There's great potential. There's a lot to study. There's a lot to embrace, especially in terms of technology.
So likewise, there is a huge market as well, an untapped market in Southeast Asia. Asia is actually the largest continent in the world, but Southeast Asia is a part of Asia. So with 10 member states in the ASEAN bloc, we've got a total population of 630 million people. There's a growing middle class, rising affluence, as well as recently, there with the launch of direct airline links from Singapore to Ethiopia, as well as to Thailand with Kenya Airways, to Malaysia and Vietnam. There is now, much more an ease of travel, for people from these countries to head to Africa. Likewise, I think it's important to diversify, your risk as well in terms of markets. Indeed, the Chinese mainland market is a huge one, a lucrative one. People are wanting to go in there and market, Africa to the Chinese. However, with Chinese government policies being quite erratic, we've seen travel bans, on South Korea, on different countries where China sometimes has a diplomatic, conflict with, and effectively that will cut off Chinese tourists into that country. Having an ASEAN view would give, African countries a long-term strategic view of not putting your eggs into one basket. So if, for example, one day the Chinese tourists are not able to visit for some reason because of a government ban, you still have other countries within the ASEAN bloc that would still, support you. To reach out to, the ASEAN travelers, I think it's important to harness the power of technology. There are 370 million internet users in ASEAN, and mobile connectivity, internet, social media penetration is growing phenomenally. With technology, it brings the world closer. It allows us to market Africa much more quicker to people in this part of the world. Using social media again, it's a good platform to share news and stories about the continent. So it's now much easier to put Africa on the ASEAN travelers' radar. And engage with influential travel bloggers, maybe me. Work with tourism boards in Africa to promote, Africa destinations to, people in Singapore, in Thailand, in Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia. So I think it's now much more easier than before to share Africa with the rest of the world. So just continuing on that, sharing my personal experiences of starting, a company. Actually, I've registered a company in Kenya. I was traveling through East Africa for 8 months in 2016. It started off as a travel, but eventually I went into consulting. Based on my previous background working in hotels, I ended up consulting for 2 hotel owners in Kenya That's why I set up a company in Kenya. Similarly, after my consulting gig ended and I came back to Singapore, I was reaching out to companies here to work with, to send me back to Africa, but I was not successful. Hence, I decided to start my own company, Tribe Explorers, with the main objective to bridge African and Asian relations through tourism. I wanted to increase awareness for Africa. Because of my personal experiences, I've been really grateful for the interactions that I've had with the local people, as well as just wanting to share the beauty, the nature of this vast continent. So the picture on the right looks like we're in a Chinese restaurant somewhere, but actually that's in Nairobi. That is one of the hotel owners that I was consulting for in Kenya. So they've got 2 hotel lodges. Just quickly about my experiences in Africa. Being Asian, I've also worked in Europe before. Our culture of working is slightly different. I'm used to fast-paced, making decisions, diving into action. But it takes a little momentum to get into things when you're living and working in Africa. Also, the kickbacks, to get things done quicker is quite common. So it's something that you have to get used to. And also sometimes it's about knowing the right people. It's who you know, sometimes more important than what you know. But for me, I recognize that gaps, differences, are opportunities that could be capitalized on, and hence it actually sparked, my passion for Africa, which led me to my startup.
Thank you, Cherisa. That's me on the left, looking at the city of Wakanda. If you've watched Black Panther. Anyway, moving on. It's not always the Wakanda beauty, but that's what we're aspiring to get. I mean, I've been inspired by many stories. My story of having grown up in this community where you feel you've got a great potential. I've been privileged to travel with my previous job, and then here I get back into the country and I realize, wait, we have such an incredible potential. This beauty, if we keep it to ourselves, we are not helping. And so getting out, reaching people, building partnerships, and trying to let people, hey, no, there's a great opportunity. And once we get people in, we create opportunities. And that's stemming from the conversation we had the last time about making Africa work and how tourism can help. And that's what inspired us to start Watalii Safaris, which is a Swahili word actually for tourists, Watalii. And so quickly to the experiences, I think I'll share one or two. One is usually pricing the product, which is an experience that we've had challenge with, where you meet people, as a startup, you meet people who want high value for low cost. And we're talking about a place where we're still developing, building infrastructure. So it's been, as a consultant and a startup, you want to be very careful to balance the costs and know which you can go with, what you can't take, because you don't want to compromise on the at the end of the day, the value that you can give. The other thing about pricing of a product is the inflation and currency exchange. That is going to happen once in a while because you're in a landlocked country like we are. Sometimes the fuel prices will be affected. Those are things that you have to pay in dollars, for instance. Accommodation, you have to pay in dollars. So those things you need to, the devil is in the details, and being able to anticipate the volatile and hidden costs as well, to be able to steer through the starting of a company. The other thing, of course, is deterioration of the quality of the product. This is an experience I have had as well. Sometimes because of the infrastructure, a bit of limits still, as we're still developing, of course, you are not able to give as much as you could have promised because of the volatility of that as well. So it's an experience that we have had, and you always have to be quick to decide on what you can put as an option for an activity. Then, of course, the evolving needs of a traveler. They will tell you what we need is, is 5-star, and then the 5-star they experienced in, say, Europe is what they expect back home in Uganda. And you're thinking, wait, I think we need to do more of letting people know that you're coming for an adventure, you're coming for an experience, you're not going to get anywhere else. So I think that's something we're also learning to adopt, to make sure we get people to know that the experience is pristine, is authentic, it's an African experience. Right, so to link up from where we were just being our experiences, we thought we would leave you with words of wisdom. We chose to call them words of wisdom of creating a tourism startup in East Africa. One is always be ready to outrun the bad news. And quickly, we'll go to the next slide, and if you're happy to, I don't know what you think this is. Anybody wants to give a shot? Sorry?
Somewhere in Europe?
There you go.
Yes.
Very close, actually. This is after President Trump was elected in the US. But I promise you, we are still flying into the US. It's still one of the leading destinations for travel. So I think, what do you do when all the news is peddling against you? And that is what we are challenged with as Africa. All that you hear is bad news. And that's why we're saying, no, we're going to get out. We're going to get out and let people know it is not what you hear. It's not always bad. If you look at the cities, for instance, you compare the cities in the East African region and the cities in Europe in the last 3-4 years, you're going to realize that there could have been more attacks in the cities actually in Europe. Don't we still have people flying in? In fact, Singapore Airways Airlines flies in twice into Paris every single day. So I think these are the challenges we're facing, but we will come out and share that, guys, it's different, it's better, it's doable. I can still tweet and I'm not dying from Ebola. So these are things that I think we will need to combat with coming out and sharing like we are doing.
I think the other business perspective of outrunning the bad news is also you can do as much due diligence as you would, do as much preparation in your decision making, however, when things happen politically, economically, socially, nothing ever prepares you for, what might happen, say, a natural disaster, or the currency devaluing. These are things that you can't prepare for. But you have to have the mindsets of these things that would happen, embrace yourself, for the changes to come, and being flexible and adaptable to what may happen. So, yeah, I think...
And also adding on the fact that now we're looking at this whole East African working together with the East African visa, you're able to actually, do as much within different places. When a place is not stable today, it doesn't mean it will be tomorrow. But definitely moving forward, also misconceptions that incidences like this actually drop in numbers, it's not true. Kenya is one example. By the end of last year, after the whole travel advisories that were going around against it from the UK and US, you won't believe that they made actually 20% increment in all their arrivals for last year. And that justifies, in fact, there were double digits of arrivals from the US and the UK to Nairobi, Kenya, and so I believe we just have to go against it and believe that there's a better way to do it, and I think one of the ways is such an opportunity to share that it's actually doable and there are people doing it and it's safe.
So diversifying your product is also something that we need to think about as well. People only have the perception that Kenya, Tanzania is only good to go during the migration season, or Uganda is a lower cost option for gorilla tracking. However, I think instead of marketing already well-known attractions, we need to develop a niche. So through activity-based activities, through experiences, marketing value-added services, to different market segments, as opposed to just over-marketing the Masai Mara or the Serengeti. Tell people out there what exactly you can do in the different East African destinations, which brings us back to the point again. For people who are less adventurous, they could think about cultural events, music festivals, that's taking place, throughout different countries. So it's just not about safari or climbing a mountain. There's so much more to explore in the continent.
Building partnerships is very crucial for for a startup, and I think we're the best example right here. We've come out and we're trying to use our different strengths to ensure that we promote Africa. The other thing that is important, of course, is to reach out to different players, the stakeholders. It could be the logistics, it could be accommodation, it could be transportation. Everybody plays an important role in this business, and it's very people-centric. I'll give an example of just a driver. A driver is going to be your representation as a company to go pick a pickup. And we've had instances where other operators will probably book you in at a very nice lodge, and they forget to make sure that the driver is booked in. If that driver is not looked after, you're killing. That's how it's going to fail. So it's very important to build such partnerships that are going to help give back, but also stepping out of Uganda. Building partnerships with other agencies is very important, especially for us to help us build even better and creative products. As I speak right now in Uganda, we're doing the Dragon Boat Festival on Lake Victoria, just to make sure that we can attract. It started last year, and over 3,000 Chinese and local people came in and enjoyed a Dragon Festival in an African continent. So that is also helping us reach out more, create better products, at the same time serve our customers better. So this is very crucial for a startup, definitely. Service is key. It goes without saying. You cannot compromise on quality, as sad it may sound. There are some trips that we have turned down as you're a startup, but you could look at the numbers, it doesn't add up, and you're like, I am not going to compromise on the quality of what I'm going to offer. So I'm sorry, so you will have to deal with such cases as well. But service is quality. One person brings with the other, they become 3, 5, that's marketing itself. And that's what we're believing in as a startup. You're really clinging on how well Cherisa will enjoy an experience in Africa. She enjoys it, she's going to tell another and another, and that's how it grows. So it's very important to value service at all times. You can't compromise it, especially with all that is going against us. Yeah, so this is definitely very critical.
Which leads us to customizing, the experiences for the different market segments as well as travelers. I think these days with different cultural expectations, it's something that we have to manage. The needs, the travel habits of different nationalities. There was something that I wanted to say.
I think the customization and the needs of the traveler, being able to experience, for instance, the culture and connection with the local people is very important for customization. It leaves a long-lasting experience than just going to see the animals. If you can get an experience in the local community, live out a life with them, see how the Maasai do their life, cross over to Rwanda and experience the Intore and how they make sure they celebrate. It's a celebration you always have to have at whatever event. That leaves, I think, an impact. Two travelers are not the same. They have different interests. So it's important to see how to...
Yeah, actually I wanted to share that like different nationalities have different travel habits. So the typical Asian traveler would want to squeeze 6-7 days of travel in Africa. They want to complete, a week of travel in Africa, whereas like the European or American traveler would take 2 weeks. a bit of more time to discover the country. So understanding, their habits, their needs is very important to be able to create the right product as well as experience for them. Yep.
I think does it. Profitability, sustainability, and transformation. You're starting up, you're thinking, I better make the figures, it has to add up, that it's business. It's a place we got to, and as we were discussing and we're saying, how do you approach profitability? Because you're trying to break even, but at the same time we realize that every penny you get from the first trip you get, you want to use that to grow mileage, you want to invest it in promotion, you want to invest it in development, and that's what we have experienced, that every penny you get from every first trip, you want to see, okay, how can I expose myself more to better content? And that's a challenge that you will see. Because of the challenges before, there's not a ready access of information in different destinations. So you better get out, expose yourself, get creative, get to make better products. So that's about profitability. I think it's from the start, it's put back. And then, of course, when we go to sustainability and transformation, we're looking at the younger population. Aga Khan did a survey, and just last year in the East African region, and they realized that actually over 65%, of course, that the young people, we all know that, below 35 years old, the entrepreneur, more of them are thinking, I'm going to get out, start my own business. And what are we thinking of as Watalii, and how can we expose the young people to these opportunities? And one of the things we're working on is, approach schools, say, hey, can we have one of you come and be exposed to what it takes to pick up a person? They already know Africa is their place. How do we help them realize that they can transform, use their benefits, use the potential to change their economic status? So it's very important to look at how to look at the end result. How do we tap in the young population and expose them to the opportunities available?
Likewise, also when you're on your journey as an entrepreneur, you will encounter many challenges as well as many situations which will force you to rethink, your initial objective of setting up your business. Likewise, also when things has run its course, you have to be prepared, to change course, find a different way to still achieve your objective. Sometimes it's no use flogging a dead horse, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
I also thought I would mention that one of the other strengths that we have in the East African region, of course, is our agriculture products. And it's thinking, how can we relate to this, to the potential? We're already having people interested in coming in, great. It's not easy to sell. Not every local farmer down there is able to sell their carrots out. But guess what? When you bring these people in, that's creating an opportunity. What we've done, for instance, with Watalii is, okay, when you come in as a souvenir, we're going to give you coffee. That's our product. That's something we believe in as Rwanda, as Uganda, Kenya, incredible product. That is also helping create better opportunities. And I think there's so much we could say about this, but it's something that we believe in. We believe in transformation, and I think that's the reason we're here to share more on how to tap into the resource of the young people in the African community and how to help them propel to tap into the potential that there is. We're going to play a quick video of His Excellency, who's taking a lead, and he's the current chairman of African Union. If you could listen in, please. Thank you.
Your job.
Technology has evolved so rapidly in recent years that Africa's window to follow that strategy is narrowing much more rapidly than previously understood. We are running out of time, and we must act now to save Africa from permanent deprivation. Scale is essential. We must create a single continental market, integrate our infrastructure, and infuse our economies with technology. no country or region can manage on its own. We have to be functional, and we have to stay together. The financial and institutional reform of the African Union derives all of its agency from these realities. Fortunately, Africa has assets and strengths to build on, starting with this organization and its tangible commitment to unity. This is an advantage which no other region of the world possesses in such abundance. Unity must be our starting point as we do the necessary work of redefining our plans and ambitions in continental terms. These changes need to happen. There is no country on our continent that does not want to be part of a more assertive and visible Africa.
Taking away His Excellency's message from the video, I think again it reiterates what we've shared, this morning so far. That working together, I think collaboration is key these days. You have to forge partnerships, work with people from Africa, from around the world, for sustainable and economic growth. And we'd like to actually open up the floor to any questions, some discussions. Yes.
Good morning, I'm Ron Tan from CAS. You were talking about visa on arrival. For those Chinese passport holder going to Kenya, can they get visa on arrival?
To my knowledge, not at the moment. You still have to apply for it in advance.
Because next month there's an African Cover Forum, so I have some friends going there. So I'm asking.
Ladies and gentlemen, any questions from the floor?
Hi, my name is Harish. Just want to check, you are both young entrepreneurs. What were the key challenges that you faced when you started out?
Funding?
I'd like to know, in terms of funding, what were your challenges when you came out here looking for funding? People receptive to you, or people encouraging you? Or what were the obstacles that you faced when you were discussing with them?
So personally, I was not looking for funding because I was bootstrapping myself. I wanted to build up a foundation first before inviting partners or other people to invest. My other take on having shareholders or investors in is also I want to have full control of my business and the direction I want to take. So for me at the moment and in the foreseeable 2-3 years, I'll not be looking for funding at the moment, but just bootstrapping by myself.
I think it's the same. It's also building a better foundation for us, especially coming from Africa. I'm out here saying I want to learn as much and be able to serve better. If I was going to attract any tourist, do I have what it takes? And that's what I've been doing this whole time. You'll meet some people and they will not probably give you. I've had chances of walking into agencies just to share about the opportunities I'm looking at and how we could partner just for product purposes, and you're shunned. But those are things I have to deal with. I have to get out and tell them I'm here anyway. And so that's my take. But like she said, I also have a belief in making sure that whatever I'm doing, at the end of the day, as Watali Safaris, we're impacting people. It's a challenge when you come out to look for investment because everybody's taking profit. So how do you strike that balance? I think that's the experience that I'm working on and making sure that I'm able to grow the business to a point where it can attract necessary investment.
And just quickly touching on that point as well about funding, I think funding, people always think it's about money, but for me, I think it's about opportunities. working with people to collaborate, such as this forum here, we wouldn't have this opportunity to engage with people, from the industry, from different stakeholders, if we didn't actually have that opportunity. It's not about just giving money to us, but creating that platform for us to be able to share, our business, our passion. For example, this is offline, but online, you use social media, you use your website. So these are areas and different digital media channels which you can use as well. So in terms of funding, yes, it's important, but at the same time, I think we're more also grateful for these opportunities to share.
Hi, I'm Constance from Avital Capital. Now, interestingly, when I was invited to this seminar, I'm thinking, East Africa, where is it? And it's because my partner and myself, I think he is somewhere here. Have I lost him? Oh, you're still here, yeah? Okay, we have put a little bit of money into Zimbabwe, into a little gold mine. We were offered this opportunity, and we are about to organize a delegation there to Zimbabwe, so maybe we can collaborate, because we really do not know very much about Africa. But we have heard horror stories. Our partner, who has been there for the last 22 years, and he's from Malaysia, where he tells us, don't worry, come. Zimbabwe is a beautiful country. You must come not only for Victoria Fall and all that. There are great opportunities, and I'm glad that today we have this opportunity to be here. So, we should have funds and funding at the same time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning. Cherisa, you mentioned that you registered a company in Kenya. What were your challenges in registering it, if at all, and what are the type of hoops that you had to jump to get it registered? And then just the second question, what type of business do you actually own and what do you do?
So the registered company in Kenya, it's a consulting company. When I landed in Kenya from traveling, I chanced upon the opportunity to consult for the 2 hotel owners. That's where I decided to set up a registered consulting company. I had to get a local partner to do it. So on the reverse, registering a company in Singapore is very, very easy. Go to Accra, put money, and you're done. However, registering a company in Kenya, it took me about 4 weeks to get done. We had to go to immigration to make sure my visa, my local partner's passport is valid. We had to get a lawyer as well to draft up documents. And the documents that were required time to gather as well. We had to pay some money in terms of coffee money to, for speedy work, which I am used to in Singapore, online and everything's sorted, but we had to have a lot of coffee sessions, discussions, just to get the name of the company or formalized. So the time that it took, about 4 weeks, 6 weeks, just to get the company registered. And you haven't taken into consideration opening a bank account as well. So that's another procedure, getting the company stamp. So that was a little tedious in terms of process. Coming back to Singapore, I registered a company here as well, Travel Explorers. And it was easy peasy. However, the flip side is that the regulations surrounding what I wanted to do was then another hurdle that I had to cross with STB in terms of licensing and many other factors. So I think that's different sides of experiences and stories to share from there.
Hello, my name is Augustine. I heard this Mark mentioned about infrastructure in Kenya, right? And also in East Africa. So the railway has been built between Mombasa as well as Nairobi. It was launched, I think, last year. And there are plans also extend the railway, the new infrastructure into the other East African countries like Rwanda, Uganda, etc. So how is it working so far, let's say, between Mombasa and Nairobi? How does it look moving forward?
As far as I know, it's not a passenger carrying, I think they just recently opened the passengers, but it's carrying cargo, from the port to Nairobi.
I think that's the major purpose for the railway. We're finding a few challenges, especially in Uganda, because land tenure issues. Land is owned by people, so it's taking a bit of time to kind of work through it. But definitely, everybody's putting their efforts to make sure that we come together. As the East African community is definitely trying to do all they can to speed up infrastructure developments to link the whole of East Africa. It's going to be a bit slow because there are a few things to sort out. There are different countries, different beliefs, but definitely the momentum is on, and everybody's trying to come together and make sure they mobilize as much as they can and make it work. So at the end of the day, we believe that it's going to happen by all means. With the transportation, if you are going to talk about, say, flights, within just the East African community, you can fly to any city in 3 hours. And that's something I think that is plausible. So I think there's already a lot going to ensure that the East African community is connected, is doing business together, and I believe it's going to be better in a few years' time. Yeah.
Hello, Onye Igwe. Actually, a very straightforward question relative to this session. So great, very interesting, want to go. So do you guys do one-on-one type sessions? Do you do group tours? Do you have set dates? If somebody is interested to go, what do they do next?
Speak to us. So yes, to answer your question, we do customization. If you'd like to travel with just your family or a group of friends, we can organize that for you. If you'd like one of us to go with you and your traveling group, we can do that as well. There are set departures as well, so there are daily departures. The people that work within Africa, yeah, they do that for Kenya, for Tanzania. And also group tours. If you like to organize yourself and a group, we try to, if you want to travel with other people from other countries, say Europeans or Americans or other Asian nationalities who would go from different point of departure, that's possible as well. Yes. Actually, my friends just launched a self-driving tour in Uganda. So if you like to go on an adventure, take the 4x4 and go by yourself with a map, I think. No Google Maps, do they work?
They will, to a certain extent.
Okay.
I mean, you're coming for an authentic experience. Let's be it, enjoy it. Let's look at the positive side of it. It's an adventure.
Yes.
Yeah. But yes, indeed, if you want to, we believe that as much as we want to invest, you want to come and have an experience. So why not? Tomorrow, just let's jump on the next flight and let's go and experience what we want to sell, what we want everybody else to like and enjoy. Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Yes. Please. Thank you very much, Cherisa and Mark. First, let me congratulate both of you for embarking your journey into Africa. I mean, you're African, she's Singaporean, but amazing partnership. And I think this is what the Center for African Studies would like to see and encourage among Singaporeans. To do business in Africa, we all know it's not easy, you have explained, but the rewards are equally exciting. Startups like yours, to begin a journey like from Singapore is never easy because the startups that begin in Singapore are all high-tech. This is like a old economy, so to speak. So funding, I totally agree with you in terms of not only money, but other areas of help that we need. It's always going to be a challenge in Singapore for businesses like you. But I think the biggest challenge, or rather I would say the biggest opportunity for engaging any country in the world is tourism. And this is what we call the low-hanging fruits. Once you can establish a tourism pipeline of activity, I think the opportunities are sort of self-multipliers, so to speak, because you get hotels, you get people with skills. The whole hospitality industry grows with tourism. I think Singapore has been a champion for opening up tourist markets, especially in this part of the world, Bali, look at other ASEAN countries within the region. And Singapore is a very strong believer in open skies. But unfortunately, we are not getting Singapore Airlines and some of our major Asian carriers to fly to Africa. Singapore Airlines, I think, goes to South Africa. But other than Ethiopian Airlines, not directly. So we need this connectivity to start tourism. But for my friends who are here, let me just say two, three things. I think somebody over coffee was mentioning that Africa has a big challenge on security. I mean, security is always a big issue with anybody going to anywhere in the world. I don't think it's only Africa. I think it's anywhere in the world. But I think those of us who have been to Africa, and I have been to Africa, I have never encountered any security issue. My good friend Harish and I, we have a very good time in Nigeria. I don't think we had any security problems. So I think the thing is just to stay on the right path and don't indulge in things that can cause envy to the local people. And I think that's truth anywhere you go in the world. I mean, just play yourself down and be humble, so to speak. I think that's true. I think the other point that somebody mentioned was about horror stories. I think, unfortunately, Africa has had its share of bad press, and that's what has created these horror stories. I mean, nobody gives Africa good press, so to speak. Even in Singapore papers, we never hear anything about Africa in our Singapore Straits Times or Business Times. And if they do mention, it's always about famine, or it's all about Boko Haram, or it's something about piracy in somewhere in some parts of Africa. So to take home really that is a dangerous place to go to. Johan comes from South Africa. I mean, South Africa also has share of security issues, but people go there in droves for tourism, am I right? Yeah, so I think you just have to stay in the right path. So keep horror stories in its right perspective, but enjoy the continent. I think that's the beauty of the continent. Last point that I want to make is, I think for some, Africa is a continent, it's not a country. There are 54 countries. From the north, you have including Egypt. Right down in the south, you have South Africa. In the east, I think, where they come from, the mark comes from, it starts from Uganda. Then on the western side, it goes all the way to Senegal, Port Verde. If you heard about a small little island in the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. So it's a huge country. It's a tremendous country. So I think, remember that if you want to visit the continent, you cannot go to every country in the continent. I think you have to cherry pick what you think is most comfortable for you. I don't think anyone is encouraging or in fact advocating that you should go to all the 54 countries. It's impossible. May I now really take the final point? I think there are two individuals here whom I must point out. His Excellency, the High Commissioner of Rwanda to Singapore, is a perfect example of the diplomatic service African diplomatic service who is reaching out to Singapore public any way they can to change the perception, thinking on Africa. Rwanda has always taken the developmental model of Singapore and tried to replicate, or to some extent has replicated in Rwanda. It's an amazing country to go to. Gorilla country there is amazing. I've been there. So he is one gentleman you can reach out to, and always he's available. I think his colleague is right at the back. And then the other gentleman is Harish. Harish, as you know, is our Singapore's honorary consul in Nigeria. A great friend to know if you are in that part of the country. Even though you're not in Nigeria, I think Nigeria is the closest Singapore consulate on that part of Africa that you can reach out to. So Harish is always available to help any Singaporean, very generous, always willing to give a helping hand, and that's, I think, something which all Singaporeans should know, because when you go to that part of the world, you need to keep in touch. If you think you need emergency help, then Harish is always around there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my chairman of the advisory board, the startup driving force behind the center. Has a passion for Africa, as you can hear, and a wonderful knowledge thereof. As a South African, I at times stand a bit ashamed if I listen to his depth of knowledge. So you're an inspiration to us all, and thank you for those words ending off this today. I think I would do an injustice were I to continue. I think at this stage of the game, ladies and gentlemen, if I can give a small gift, it is something which you cannot buy, you have to earn it. So, Mark. You can join me in thanking him once again. Ambassador, please, I would like you in the photo as well. Ambassador Kavaraganda, Harish, could I ask you to please? Then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending today. I really appreciate your support for Africa, and I look forward to seeing you again at our next session in early May. Thank you very much.
We're looking at the next 1 minute. Yeah.